It was 4:17 p.m. The light in the kitchen was soft and golden, slanting through the blinds like ribbons of memory. Clara stood by the sink, drying the last of the lunch dishes. Her hands, once fast and steady, moved slower now but still graceful, like someone who had spent decades taking care of everything. The kettle hissed quietly behind her. She always made tea at this hour, not because she was thirsty, but because it gave the afternoon shape like a ritual carved into time. She looked over at the old wooden table, the same one Ethan had spilled his milk on as a boy, the same one she sanded and repainted every year until her knees gave out. Today, it sat empty. No toys, no crumbs, no voice calling Mom from the hallway. Just stillness. She lived alone now, and had, for nearly 7 years. Ethan had grown up, moved across the country, married a woman who smiled too tight and hugged too loose. They called sometimes. On holidays, when they remembered. She never complained. That wasn't her way. She was raised to endure, not to expect. But lately, the silence in her home had begun to echo too loudly. The phone rang. She dried her hands slowly before answering. "Hi, Mom," said the voice. Her heart flickered. "Ethan." He hadn't called in weeks. "I was just thinking of you," she said softly. There was a pause. "Mom, we've been talking, and we think maybe it's time you moved in with us." She blinked. "I mean, it's getting harder for you to do things alone. You don't drive anymore. What if something happens?" Clara looked down at her slippers. They were fraying at the toes. "I'm fine," she said. "Really? Please. Mom, we have space. Mia thinks it's best. You deserve to rest." She hesitated, then nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "All right," she whispered. She didn't know it yet, but that call would be the last time her kitchen felt like home. The house was bigger than she remembered. Clara stood at the doorway, suitcase in hand, her back aching from the flight. Ethan smiled, too brightly. "Come in, Mom. We set up the guest room for you." Mia didn't smile. She gave Clara a quick hug, the kind that says this is obligation, not affection. The house smelled like lavender cleaner and something artificial underneath. It was spotless, lifeless. Clara stepped inside. There were no family photos on the walls, just abstract art and mirrors. Ethan led her down a long hallway, the rooms at the back quieter there. He said. She entered the room. It was neat. A twin bed, a dresser, a chair by the window, and a lock on the outside of the door. She said nothing. That first night, she listened to the sounds of the house, the soft hum of the fridge, the low murmur of Ethan and Mia talking behind closed doors, the distant cry of her grandson. She had seen him only briefly. Mia had said he was tired. Next time. The next time didn't come. Days passed. Clara wasn't allowed in the kitchen without asking. Boundaries. Mia had said with a sharp smile. She wasn't asked to join them for dinner. Rest is important, Ethan had added. She ate alone, in silence. She offered to help with laundry, dishes, anything. No, Mom, Ethan said. You've done enough in your life. Just relax. But the way Mia looked at her, it didn't feel like kindness. It felt like surveillance. On the 5th day, Clara sat in the tiny backyard. The sun was warm on her shoulders, but her chest felt cold. The back door creaked open. Mia stepped out, arms crossed. "I need to be honest," she said bluntly. "We didn't invite you to live with us forever." Clara looked up, startled. Mia continued. "We have a plan. Ethan's been researching some great assisted living places. He'll talk to you soon." Clara blinked. The words landed like stones. Mia turned to go, then added, "This house isn't meant for more than just us." The door shut behind her. Clara sat still. The breeze stirred the leaves. A bird chirped nearby. And for the first time in years, Clara felt truly invisible. But something inside her, something ancient and quiet, had just begun to wake up. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the carpet. It had a pattern of small, grey squares. Perfect. Lifeless. Just like this house. Her suitcase was still half-packed in the corner. She hadn't bothered to unpack. Some part of her had known. A knock at the door. "Grandma." It was a whisper. Tiny. Hopeful. Her heart jumped. She opened the door a crack. Liam stood there, pajama-clad, holding a toy truck. "Mama said I can't come in," he whispered. "But I wanted to show you this. It's my favorite. Clara opened the door wider, kneeled, took the toy in both hands like it was made of gold. It's beautiful, she said, her voice trembling. He smiled, missing a front tooth, then looked around nervously. I have to go. She said you're sick. Her breath caught. Do I look sick to you? She asked gently. He shook his head. No, you look like a grandma. Then he ran off, barefoot on the polished floor. Clara sat back on the bed and cried, not because she was hurt, not because she was lonely, but because even a 5-year-old had been taught to keep her at arm's length. That night, when the house was quiet, she turned on the desk lamp. She pulled out an old notebook from her bag, the same one she used to write grocery lists and Ethan's school reminders. She opened to a blank page and began writing. A new will, not one of money, not yet, but a will of memory, of what she would take back, what she would no longer give away. She wrote, January 12th, I leave behind the hope that they will change. I claim back my dignity and the right to be seen. Then she closed the book, and for the first time in weeks, slept with her spine straight and her heart steady. The next morning, Clara rose early. She didn't wait to be called for breakfast. Instead, she opened her suitcase and took out the brown leather folder she had carried with her for decades. It held everything: birth certificates, bank accounts, property deeds, and a copy of her old will, the one that left everything to Ethan. She stared at the name for a long time. Then, carefully, she crossed it out with a pen. Later that day, she asked Ethan, could we go out sometime? I'd love to see the park near here. Ethan looked puzzled. Mia's been busy, and I've got meetings. Maybe later this week. Clara nodded. No anger, just a small smile. She didn't need the park. She needed to measure their patience. That night, after they all went to bed, she turned on her phone, the one she'd hidden deep in her bag, so Mia wouldn't take it. She called a number she hadn't dialed in 5 years. Clara. The voice was raspy. Surprised. Hello, Joan, Clara said softly. Still doing taxes for complicated old women. Joan laughed on the other end. Only the ones with fire in their belly. What do you need? Advice, Clara said, and maybe a way to disappear legally. They talked for 26 minutes. When Clara hung up, her heart was racing, not with fear, but with relief. She had a plan. The next day, she baked muffins. Banana nut, Ethan's favorite. She left them on the counter with a note. Thank you for letting me stay. I needed the reminder. Then, quietly, she walked out the door, not with a suitcase, just a small bag, and her folder. She didn't slam the door. She didn't cry. She simply left, while they still believed they had won. The town was small, the kind with one diner, one pharmacy, and people who waved even if they didn't know you. Clara rented a room above an old bookstore. It smelled like dust and cedar. The floor creaked when she walked. The windows stuck when she tried to open them, but it was hers. No one told her when to eat. No one watched her through narrowed eyes. She breathed freely for the first time in months. The bookstore owner, a woman named Helen, was in her 70s and wore bright scarves every day. Need work? Helen asked. Clara blinked. I haven't worked in years. Helen shrugged. You can alphabetize. That's enough. And so Clara spent her mornings in the back of the store, sorting books, dusting shelves, sipping tea. Her afternoons were quiet, and in the evenings, she wrote. She opened her old notebook and began to type. My name is Clara. I raised a son alone. I gave him everything. And when I was no longer useful, he gave me nothing. She didn't name names. She didn't write out of vengeance. She wrote because silence had nearly swallowed her. She posted the entry to a small blog. No photos. No ads. Just her voice. The next morning, 14. People had read it. By the end of the week, it was 300. By the end of the month, 87,000, and comments poured in. My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 2 years. My son moved me to a facility and sold my house. I thought I was alone. Clara read every word. She replied to as many as she could. People began calling her the quiet fire, because her words didn't scream, but they burned. She was invited to speak at a small community center, then a podcast, then a public library event that had to bring in extra chairs. And still, she never mentioned her son, not once, because this story was no longer about him. It was about all the others who had forgotten they still mattered. Ethan was in his office when the first call came. Mr. Rivers, this is Wells Financial. We need confirmation on a recent account closure under Clara Rivers. He frowned. My mother's finances. I'm her son. I have power of… Actually, sir, the voice said. There was a legal update 6 weeks ago. You're no longer listed. His mouth went dry. He ended the call and stared at his computer screen, then picked up his phone and dialed his lawyer. Yeah, I need to know if my mother changed her will, or if someone helped her move assets. The lawyer paused. She's allowed to. Ethan, she's mentally sound. You said she went willingly. She did, Ethan muttered. At least, I thought she did. That night, he didn't sleep. He searched online. No email. No phone records. No activity on her social media. It was like Clara had vanished. By the next day, Mia noticed something was off. You're quiet, she said. Ethan looked up. Have you seen any news about Mum? News? Why would there be news? He hesitated. Forget it. Instead, he Googled, elderly woman blog mother forgotten nursing home. And there it was. The Quiet Fire. A minimalist site. No ads. No photos. Just stories. One headline read, I used to whisper my pain. Now I speak it out loud. He clicked. Read. Scanned. Paused. Some lines cut straight through him. She gave him her 20s, her health, her future, and when she asked for a place at the table, he gave her the garage. His jaw clenched. No name, no city, but every detail matched. He scrolled to the comments. Thousands, and every single one praised her, called her brave, powerful, resilient. Ethan's stomach turned. He closed the laptop. For the first time in years, he realized something terrifying. He hadn't just lost control of her life. He had lost control of her story. Clara was shelving a stack of poetry books when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. 3 minutes later, it rang again. She answered this time, expecting maybe the bookstore's supplier. Mom. Her hand froze on the shelf. Ethan. His voice was tight. Not warm. Not soft. Just tense. I've been trying to find you. Are you okay? Clara paused. I'm safe, she said simply. I saw the website. Is that really you? She didn't answer right away. Then, yes, it's me. He exhaled sharply. Mom, you're making me look terrible. People are going to think. I never used your name, but people are guessing. You're making it sound like I abused you or something. Clara's tone remained calm. Did you not send me to a nursing home? It wasn't like that. You locked me out of your kitchen. Ethan. A pause. You isolated me from your son. Okay. But we didn't mean harm. Mia said you needed space. No, Clara said. You needed space. From guilt. From gratitude. From the past. Ethan's voice cracked. Can we meet? Talk in person. I think we got off track. I'm not angry anymore. Ethan, I'm not bitter, but I am… finished. What does that mean? It means I have no space left inside me for people who remember me only when they're afraid. He was silent. Then, Mom, please, I made a mistake. Clara's eyes welled up. Not from sadness, but from how little those words moved her now. She whispered, You didn't make a mistake. Ethan, you made a choice. Then she ended the call. Outside, the wind rattled the bookstore sign. Inside, Clara stood still, not broken, not angry, just whole. The bell above the bookstore door jingled softly. Clara looked up from the counter. Ethan stood there, holding Liam by the hand. The boy looked taller, older, but his eyes, those wide, curious eyes, were still the same. Hi, Ethan said awkwardly. I thought we could stop by. Clara gave a small nod. Liam looked between them, then slowly stepped forward. Grandma. Her throat tightened. She hadn't heard that word in months, maybe years. She kneeled. He wrapped his arms around her, tight, not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but with the unfiltered love of a child who remembered kindness, even in fragments. I missed you, he whispered. Clara swallowed hard. I missed you too, sweetheart. Behind them, Ethan shuffled his feet. Listen, Mom. Things got messy. But I wanted Liam to see you. He kept asking. Clara stood up slowly. She looked Ethan in the eye. "I'm not angry," she said again, "but I don't want to pretend nothing happened." Ethan nodded stiffly. "I get it. I just thought, maybe you'd want to see him." "I do," she said softly, "but not as a performance." Ethan's jaw clenched. "I didn't bring him here as a performance." She raised an eyebrow. "Did you not check how many reporters follow me now?" He said nothing. Liam tugged at her sleeve. "Can I see where you work?" Clara smiled, eyes warming. "Of course." She led him into the back room, showed him the alphabet wall, the stacks of dusty titles, the cozy chair by the window where she sometimes wrote. He listened, asked questions, laughed. It was the sound of something Clara thought she'd lost forever. Pure connection. An hour passed. Ethan stood at the front, scrolling his phone. Clara walked Liam back to the door. He hugged her again, tighter this time. "I want to come back," he said. "Just me and you." She bent down, held his face in her hands. "You always have a place here, Liam." He smiled, then turned back to his father. Clara watched them walk away. Ethan never looked back, but Liam did. 3 times. The studio lights were brighter than she expected. Clara sat in a soft grey chair, hands folded neatly in her lap. Across from her, the host smiled warmly. "Clara Rivers, or should I say, the Quiet Fire. Over 5 million people have read your story. Did you ever expect this?" Clara shook her head gently. "I wrote because I had nowhere else to speak. I didn't know anyone was listening." The audience leaned in. They weren't just listening. They were breathing her in. "What do you think made your story resonate?" the host asked. Clara paused. "I think a lot of people are raised to believe love is duty, that we owe our parents, our children. But what happens when that love is one-sided?" A ripple went through the crowd. She continued, "I gave everything to my son, not because I expected anything back, but I didn't expect to be erased." Silence. Then applause. Slow, building, tears in eyes, hands clapping over hearts. That night, Clara's inbox overflowed. Speaking requests, publisher offers, people who had felt unseen their entire lives now writing to thank her for saying what they never could. Back in his pristine kitchen, Ethan watched the segment on his phone. He stared blankly at the screen. "Why doesn't she mention me?" he snapped. Mia looked up from her wineglass. "Maybe because you're not the hero. She wouldn't even have a story without me," he shouted. She set the glass down. "Exactly." Ethan stood up, pacing. "She's making me look like a monster." "You did that yourself," Mia said, standing to leave the room. "She's just telling the truth." The next morning, Clara received an envelope. No return address. Inside was a photo of Ethan, Liam, and Clara cropped out. On the back, someone had scribbled, "Enjoy your fame. You lost your family." Clara smiled softly, folded the photo, and placed it in the fireplace. As the flames curled the edges, she whispered, "I didn't lose them. They lost the version of me they could control." It had been 5 years, 5 quiet, beautiful years. Clara now lived in a small cottage outside town, surrounded by wildflowers and mismatched chairs. She hosted Sunday tea on the porch, wrote columns for senior advocacy groups, and still got letters from people around the world. She never remarried, never moved back, but she had never been alone. Helen, the bookstore owner, now visited twice a week. Volunteers helped her with tech and typing when her hands ached. Children from the local school called her Miss C. She had become rooted, at peace. One evening, just as the sky turned a soft lavender, someone knocked. Clara opened the door slowly, and there he stood, Liam, no longer the small boy with a toy truck, now taller than her, backpack slung over one shoulder, a nervous smile on his face. "Hi, Grandma." Her heart swelled. "Hi, sweetheart." He stepped forward. "I turned 18 last week." She smiled, blinking back tears. "I know." He looked down, then back at her. "I read everything you wrote. I didn't understand it all before, but now I think I do." She said nothing. Let him speak. "I want to know you, not just the version they told me about. The real you." Clara's voice caught in her throat. "You always could," she said softly. "You just had to choose it." He reached into his bag and pulled out a framed photo. Her, him, from the bookstore visit years ago. "I kept it," he whispered. They never knew. She opened the door wider, and this time, when he stepped inside, It was not out of guilt, or fear, or performance. It was homecoming. Later, as they sat on the porch, sipping warm tea, Liam asked, "Do you ever miss him?" Clara looked out at the horizon. "Sometimes," she said honestly, "but then I remember. I didn't lose a son. I found myself." The wind rustled the trees. The sun dipped lower, and in that golden silence, Clara knew her story had always been hers to write. And now, so was her ending. Do you see yourself in her story? If yes, you're not alone. Subscribe for more stories that speak the truth no one else dares to say. Leave a comment. Share your story. Let's give voice to the unheard.